Tonight we will examine concepts that may challenge your perception of the world around you. Strange creatures, chilling tales, and the occasional conspiracy. Here on our show, we will attempt to provide you with paranormal insight. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. We're going to take a look back today at our third episode featuring my mom. She's going to tell us a few ghost stories and about her psychic experiences. Enjoy, and we'll see you next week with a brand new episode. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show tonight. Our guest is Judy Miller, also known to me as Mom. Hi, Mom.
Hi, son.
How you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Good.
You know what my show is about, and I guess we'll just jump right into the topic today is your experiences as being psychic, and also I think you have a couple of ghost stories for us as well. So let's start with the psychic thing first, though.
Okay.
Tell me when you first noticed you were psychic. How old were you?
About 30 years old.
Oh, later
Um,
in life. Oh, okay. I
mhm,
thought
yes.
for some reason I thought I remember you saying you had semi precognitive feelings when you were younger.
No, when I was younger, I started noticing a lot more things and, being quite observant from age 7 on and just kind of discovering a lot of things about people in general. Um, and kind of working my way through that and how I dealt with people and that sort of thing. Trying to also understand more of what people were going through. That was just sort of just an awakening, so I guess you could say, at around age 7.
Okay.
But I didn't have any actual psychic uh, adventures, I guess you could say, until much later. I may have had some intuitive experiences, but
Can you talk about that? Do you recall any of these intuitive experiences?
no, there were so many of them. Like I said, I was sort of like coming into my own
Gotcha.
and discovering who I was as well as others around me, trying to understand everybody and reasons why people do and say things they do and that sort of thing. So that was sort of like a learning curve for me up at that point in my life.
Okay.
And I don't recall any specific instances where I thought it might be supernatural or psychic or whatever. It's just more aware. I was just more aware of things.
Okay. So you say this started around 30. Why don't you talk to me about that?
You were a baby, well, a toddler. You were 2 years old, and um, you were in the habit of waking very early in the morning, like 5 a.m. And so on
Sorry.
this one particular, that's okay. At any rate, this I think was a Friday, and I had scheduled a 6 o'clock meeting with a realtor. So your father and I wanted to buy a house, and so he was going to show me some homes around 6 p.m. And that day at around 2 p.m. I put you down for your nap. And I was so exhausted that day because of having had a very busy morning and gotten up so early that I thought that I wanted to take a nap too. And so I lay down on the couch and closed my eyes. And I'm thinking, I wish I didn't have to go to this appointment tonight. I'm so tired. And then, like magic, a TV turns on in my head. And on it, the only image I can see is a silhouette of a man's head. And then there, scrolled across the bottom from right to left, white lettering that said, "Don't worry, you won't have to go. He'll call and say his mother died."
Wow.
And yeah, wow,
That's
I thought that was very specific, and
very
and it
specific. Kind
shook
of
me.
dark too.
I opened my eyes and in shock almost, like thinking, why am I thinking such horrible things? Just go to the appointment. You know? Anyway, I tried to dismiss it as some awful thing and try to get it out of my mind. And went on with the day. I probably did nap for a while, got up, made dinner, whatever. And then at 6 o'clock, the phone rang, and it was this realtor. And he said, "I'm sorry, but I have to cancel our appointment. My mother died, and I have to fly back east."
Wow.
And
That's
I almost said,
creepy.
"Yes, I know."
Oh,
I almost said that, and I stopped myself and I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry." That was my very first experience like that.
that's heavy duty. Okay, so I'm two. You have this experience. What other have you had anything up to that point, or did it was it strictly I'm two and this happens? And it's a little banal, and it's not like you saw who's gonna assassinate the president or something like that. You
No,
saw
nothing like that. It's just that it was personal. It was something that was involving me. I had this appointment. I was tired, didn't want to go, and so it's like I tuned in to this man that I was supposed to meet. I had never met before, which probably explains that his image was a silhouette.
ah very good.
I had no idea what he looked like. Um,
That makes sense.
yeah. So, but I'll tell you, it shook me for a very long time. I just couldn't believe that that happened, and that I saw it before. It scared me, actually. It's very scary because I thought, I don't want this kind of power. I don't
Right.
want to see what's going to happen. It's scary.
Right. Yeah, especially if you foresee someone's death. That must be traumatizing.
Yeah, it was. And I didn't even know him, but it was traumatizing. From that point on, I for years went by. I didn't have any more experiences like that uh, for a long time.
Did you ever tell anyone about this ability?
No,
No.
it scared. No, because I thought people would think I was crazy.
Okay. Gotcha. Please continue with what you were saying before.
Oh, okay. So during this period between at the time you were 2 years old until you were 13 years old, this part is not good. I could look at somebody and tell that they weren't long for this earth.
Really? I
Yes,
don't
that
think you
happened
ever
to
told me about this.
I didn't.
I don't believe
Oh.
so. Please
There are many
share.
times when I would look at somebody. I could think of one person in particular I'm not going to name. I in the band I was in, and looking at him during our break, everybody was standing around talking. And I thought to myself when I saw his face, oh my God, I don't think he's well. I don't think he's going to be here long. And within 2 weeks, he died.
Wow.
And that happened with another person also in the band,
Really?
maybe a couple years later. Now, the next time I had a TV turn on in my head was when you were 13, I believe. And it was 1985. That
Okay.
makes you about, yeah, that makes you 13. Okay. And we were getting ready to go on, we were planning a vacation
Oh, is this down to
to
LA?
Disneyland.
Disneyland.
Yeah.
Okay.
But prior to July, let me go back up a few months to
Okay.
January
January.
of
Same year.
1985.
Gotcha.
All of a sudden, in January, I started feeling this heaviness on my shoulders and chest. It wasn't a physical thing, so it wasn't health related. It was just a feeling of dread is what it was.
I see.
Every day I woke up with this feeling of dread and it wouldn't go away. And it didn't help that I had to go to work to a job I hated. So it was
Okay.
a real downer for me that year, most of the time. As the time went by, let's see, by March of that year, I'm still feeling that terrible dread every day. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, someone close to me is going to die.
Oh, I
And that just really, threw me for a loop. I thought, why am I thinking such horrible things? I don't want to think this,
yeah.
So so I tried to slough it off, but that feeling of dread was there still every single day. Finally, by July, that I knew it was going to be someone in the family. And the closer we got to our vacation time, we were going to fly down to Disneyland. I started thinking, well, maybe it's us that's going to die on the plane. Maybe we're going to
Oh,
crash.
I think I remember you saying something about this. I hope the plane doesn't go down. It was kind of arbitrary and out of nowhere. It's like it's not going to
Yeah,
go
because
down.
I was thinking all this stuff, but not telling anybody. And I finally told my dad, who was going to drive us to the airport that day. I said, Dad, I don't think I can go. I think we need to cancel. And he goes, why? And I said, I just think something awful is going to happen. Someone's going to die. It might be us. And we're maybe our plane will crash and it's going to be us that dies. But I just have this terrible feeling someone's going to die. And he said, oh, you're just nervous about flying. Don't worry about it. Just get on the plane and go have some fun. So I followed his advice as much as I really didn't want to. But I know you and your cousin Julie, who went with us,
Right.
were really looking forward to this trip.
It,
And
it had been in the works for a long time.
pardon me?
It,
Yes, it had been.
yeah.
Uh-huh. And it had been a stressful year. It was a long time coming and kind of something we were looking forward to for some relaxation and enjoyment. And so I took my dad's advice and we got on the plane. We landed safely. I was thrilled to pieces and got to our hotel. Everything seemed intact. However, let me go back just a little bit.
Okay.
2 weeks before we left for our vacation, I was sitting at my desk at work. I was catching up on things I had to get done specifically before I left.
Right.
And I'm all of a sudden the TV in my mind turns on as I'm sitting there writing something. And there was a picture of my brother. And he was flanked by two other people one on each side. It was at the car lot, at the dealership where he worked. And he was showing people cars in my image. And all of a sudden, he keeled over, he hit the ground. And at that moment, the white lettering comes across the bottom of the screen, scrolls from right to left, saying, your brother will die of a heart attack someday.
Wow. I,
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was that specific.
it was very specific. It gives me chills just saying it
Yeah,
right
it gives
now.
me chills hearing it.
So I started trying to reach my brother immediately.
right.
I called him everywhere I could think of looking for him, work, home, whatever, and my parents. Um, I couldn't find him anywhere. Nobody knew where he was. And I wanted to warn him. I wanted to tell him to get to a doctor and get himself checked out.
Right.
And I didn't want to, excuse me, tell everybody why I'm saying this
That makes
because
sense.
I was afraid they would think I was crazy.
Right.
But at any rate, I was frantically trying to reach him for the solid 2 weeks before we left. And the odd thing is that even though I had that image, I was still not sure who would be dying.
Oh, interesting.
That's why I was worried about us crashing in the plane. And then we had our week's vacation, had a great time, flew back on a Sunday. Um, I was planning to go see my brother on Monday. He lived in Santa Cruz at the time, and we had been gone a whole week. And of course, your stepdad, who I was married to at that time, Bob, said, You've been gone. There's no way. You're going nowhere. You've got chores to do.
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember that horse
I know.
puppy. That was horrible.
Yeah. Well, he was very, very, what's the word?
Demanding,
Strong,
domineering.
domineering.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sort of thing.
at the time, yeah.
And a little bit frightening, a little scary. Um, and I didn't want to fight with him because we had been fighting up to that point before we left on vacation, actually. So I thought, okay, I'll just stay home, get things done because I had to go back to work the next day, starting Tuesday. So on Monday, I did all my work, got my chores done, please him. And the next day I went to work. And when I came home at 6 o'clock that night, the minute I walked in the door, the phone rang.
I'll never forget this. Yeah, go ahead.
And it was my father.
Yeah, I'm the one who picked up the phone initially.
Are
Eh,
you sure? I thought I did.
No, I picked it up initially, and he did not sound like himself at all. I didn't recognize his voice.
Well, I didn't either.
And he says, "Put your mother on the phone." And I said, "Who's this?" "Put your mother on the phone." And I
Oh,
hesitated a
that's how
sec.
that went. Oh,
And
okay.
then, oh, you didn't know about this? And then
No, I
I
didn't know
and
about
then
that.
I
I don't
said,
remember.
"Okay, there's a man. He wants to talk to you."
Yeah, so I said hello, and my dad says I have bad news. And I said I didn't recognize his voice either. It didn't sound like him at
You
all.
sounded
And I
way
go,
different.
and then all of a sudden I realized it was him. I said, Dad, what's wrong? Is it grandma? Because she was 85 at that point.
Oh, right.
And he goes, No, not your grandmother, your brother. And I go, What? No, and then, he told me what happened. And what he told me was that he was at work and he keeled over in the parking lot, in the lot where he worked, just like I envisioned it. Exactly. He was with people,
Yeah, he was showing
just
customers
like my
cars.
TV
Yeah.
picture.
Wow.
And I gasped and I started to not panic, but just react, And then I thought, my poor father, he's he's so crushed and grieving. I better not get too excitable. I better help him. That's what's going through my mind. So I calmed down and said, what can I do?
Gotcha.
So he just asked me to notify my sisters,
Okay.
which I did, but I didn't tell anybody about that until after the funeral,
Oh, interesting.
because I was having a talk with my dad one day, and I told him, I said, Dad, I know this sounds crazy, but I actually envisioned this before, 2 weeks before it happened. And he goes, What? Oh my God, tell me more. Why didn't you
Oh,
tell me this in the first place? And I said, I was so afraid people would think I was crazy. That's why I kept it myself. And I didn't want it to be true either,
right.
So he said, from now on, when you get these feelings, you tell me about them. So he used to always consult me after that to see, especially after my mother had her first heart attack. He used to consult me about her. Is she going to die? And I would say, no, she's not.
Oh,
She's
okay.
fine.
You got
Because
readings
she
on,
was.
yeah. You got readings on grandma too? I didn't know that.
It was just a feeling. I just felt she was going to be fine. That's
Okay,
all.
gotcha.
I didn't have any TV pictures or anything like that. I just had a feeling that she was going to be fine. And that's what I would tell him.
Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll be back right after these messages. Here's a quick word from our sponsors. The Seekers of California for Ethereal Research and Investigation. We investigate hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and offer cleansing and clearing. Don't get scared, call Scary. Serving the greater San Jose area and beyond. Call us at 408 320 8467. That's 408 320 8467. Scary Paranormal Investigations. And now, back to the show. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing to talk with Judy Miller, my mom. All right, Mom, Please continue with your stories.
Where would you like me to begin at this?
What was the next instance that the TV screen popped on?
I have not had one since.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It I still have a lot of intuitive experiences, excuse me, but I don't have I haven't had any actually TV images. I remember at the time it was so traumatic for me, especially when the images came true. And I realized that the one with my brother was very similar to the first one I had, and that things I imagine like that or see in my mind come true. And it scared me, and I didn't want that power.
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't
didn't want
either.
to know.
Yeah, I
So
hear you.
I prayed that it would go away, you know. And and though I haven't had any more of those TV so-called TV experiences, I still have had a lot of intuitive experiences, very some the same as what I've already told you about, like knowing when someone's thinking about me, or you know,
Right, I understand.
knowing when the phone was going to ring and be that person, things like that, or
Okay.
knowing what people were going to say or do.
Do you are you aware of anyone else in the family who has psychic abilities?
I'm not. um oh, actually, I take that back. I think Penny and Jerry have both claimed to have had some similar experiences,
And
not
those,
as vivid as mine,
right.
but more on the intuitive level.
For clarity, Jerry and Penny are my
Well, they're my
aunts,
sisters. Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, my
yeah.
aunts, right?
Sorry.
That's okay. So they have. I didn't realize they had experiences too.
If they were just intuitive, but I think a lot of people have that skill.
I know Jerry's daughter, my cousin, has that ability. I've watched her actually mouth the words coming out of my mouth as I'm speaking them because she already knew what I was going to say. Now, here's one interesting thing. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I will relay it anyway. I think Grandpa, your dad, was psychic to a degree.
I think you probably are right, and that's probably why when I first told him about my image of my brother, that he said, please tell me from now on,
Right.
because I think he believed in it, because like you said, he was probably a little bit psychic himself. Right after my brother died and we had the funeral for him, we were back at my parents' house the next day on a Sunday. All of us in the family were sitting outside by the pool. I was sitting at a table. My sisters were sitting all around, and I don't know who all, but all of a sudden, it wasn't a TV image this time. All of a sudden, in my mind, I see my brother, who is slightly transparent, tiptoeing up behind me. And when he realizes that I can see him, he puts his finger up to his mouth and says, "Shh." He didn't want me to stir or let people know I was seeing anything. And he walked up to me and bent over and spoke into my left ear and said, please take care of mom and dad for me. And I agreed that I would. And that was
Wow.
it.
I don't think I ever heard that story before.
Oh, I'm surprised I didn't tell you.
That's amazing. And this
Yeah,
was at the
it was
function that
his,
was being
it was
held
the day after his funeral.
day after his funeral. Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm. And what, in your mind's eye, you saw him tiptoe up behind you, or did you actually watch his figure go up behind you?
I saw him in my mind's eye, and I almost turned around, and that's when he put his finger up to his mouth and told me to shush,
Right.
you know, don't let anybody know you see me.
Oh, wow. That's that's the first time hearing of it. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and of course, I always kept those things to myself. Like I said, I was always so afraid people would think I was nuts, and I told them I would. And I did. I looked out for mom and dad from that point on. And then in 19 now jump past a few years. My dad had a band that I was the singer. So we worked all the time. It was a very busy band for several years. We just worked constantly, like every single weekend we had gigs. In the meantime, I got very close to my father. One day I had gone to his house uh, for some particular reason I don't recall. And he said to me, he was standing, I was sitting at the table, and said, "If something should happen to me, I want you to have the band."
And
And I said, "Dad," I said, "well, first of all, sure hope nothing happens to you." I said, "But, what about my mom and my sisters? Aren't they going to want it too?" And he goes, "I don't care what they want. I want you to have it."
wow.
And I said, "Okay."
Let me tell you my story.
Yeah, I know you have one that around the same time,
Yeah,
don't
and
you?
this is 1 week before he passed. We were, I think it was some family function. We were all there for one reason or another. And he pulls my older cousin and I to one side. We're the only two boys in the family, with the exception of another cousin who lived in Hawaii at the time. And he pulls us. So in the backyard of where they used to live, at my grandparents' place, there was a pool, nice kidney-shaped pool. At the far side, there was a persimmon tree. So he pulls us over by the persimmon tree, away from pretty much everyone else in the rest of the house. And he shows his hand to us, and he says, "You see these rings? Yeah. You two are going to have to fight over these rings when I'm gone." And we both, my cousin and I both looked at each other. Like, what? Why would you say that? That's just, I mean, we didn't say this out loud. It was kind of a thought that probably passed between us, in a look. It's like, what's he talking about?
Hmm.
And my cousin made a bid for this amethyst one he liked. And I was fine with that. I'm not much of a jewelry wearer anyway, but after he gave us both, pats on the shoulder. All right, go back to what you were doing. And I followed him because he started to walk into the back door where his room was. It's like he wanted to be alone after saying that. But I followed him.
Oh, he must have been feeling
Yeah,
emotional.
I'm sure he was. And I I was not looking to get a rise or a reaction out of him whatsoever. I genuinely asked him the question, "Grandpa, did you have a vision? Did you see something about your death?" And
Wow, you point blank
I
asked him that?
did, yeah. And like I said, I wasn't looking to get a rise out of him, but I really wish I can reconsider my words at that now. But he looks at me almost hurt, eyes a little misty, and I know I'd struck a nerve. And I said, "You know what, Grandpa?" And that's when I started to backpedal. I said, "You know what, Grandpa? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. I love you, and I'll see you in a little bit." And he gives me this squeeze on my shoulder that I will never forget. It
Oh,
was it
wow.
was kind of firm, but at the same time very loving and understanding. He gives me this slight nod to his head,
Hmm.
and he's communicating so much with body language as if to say, "Yeah, you caught me. That's exactly what happened." That's how
My,
I it. Interpreted
wow.
it anyway.
So your thoughts about him being psychic were probably right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll never be
And
able
my
to.
dad was always did keep a lot to himself too. He
Yeah,
never knew about anything personal going on with
I wonder
him.
if that's where I get it.
Well, it's probably somewhat of a male trait for one thing,
Could
but
be.
yeah, it could very well be.
Yeah, but in that moment, you know, he gives me that squeeze, and I backpedal a little bit. Tell him I'll give him his space. Then he gets a little macho with me like he used to, and gives me a little swat on the arm, and says, "Okay, go, take off. I'll see you in a bit." I said, "Okay," and I turned around and we went our separate ways. But that incident always made me think that Grandpa had a gift as far as
Yeah,
psychic stuff goes. Psychic
I
stuff.
think you're probably right about that. Isn't that amazing?
It was flabbergasting, really, because
Yes.
the
Uh-huh.
revelation. I mean, that I think that's why I asked the question so point blank, is because I didn't know how else to frame it. I was flabbergasted by the fact that that thought even popped into my head,
Oh,
and
so it's like that's your psychic sense.
perhaps could be. I didn't
Well, it
sense any.
probably runs in the family. I mean, I'm sure I can't possibly be the only one that has that gift, so to speak. It's a gift and a curse.
As our favorite detective says.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was my interpretation. It's like,
Interesting.
oh, I get it now, and it actually
Hmm.
answered a few questions for me about him and why he
Oh,
reacted about certain thing. You know, the way he reacted. I can't even cite an example, but for instance, working in the band,
hmm.
I was the roadie for years,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
certain things he did and said always confounded me to a degree.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and I can't even cite a specific thing, but it was like he'd do or say something that was, it's like, why'd you say that? And it ended up he was kind of being proactive with a member of a band who was about to either, you know, electrocute himself or something like that.
Oh,
And it looks like it was a safety thing, but from I remember, I do remember something specific. I remember that we had to change a wire at the last second because we wired all of the lights in the band. I mean, it's 26 pieces. You got to wire lights to each
yeah.
music stand. And
Hmm.
I remember he said, "Tim, change out that wire." I said, "Why?" Because, you know, what's his name spilled something on it and he doesn't know about it. No, here's the thing. He said that with his back to the bandstand.
Oh my God. Well, how did he know that it
Yeah,
happened
if
then?
he saw it happen, I don't know how he did because he was never near the bandstand as far as I could tell, unless he ran up to it, saw it happen, and ran all the way back. And that wasn't him.
Wow.
That's not how he moved, especially during those
Or
years.
maybe he actually heard something
He
too.
may have picked up on something, but I mean, it was so noisy, and it was, I don't know how he perceived it happening unless he witnessed it. But even his angle where he was standing when he issued that
Hmm.
order, and I was watching him because I don't have a choice. I'm up on stage, setting these lights up. I'll know when he's going to come up, so I can see him.
Hmm.
But I'm walking away. I think I'm about ready to leave, and he says, "Tim, yeah, change that thing, change that wire. Someone spilled something on it." And sure enough, it was full of liquid. I ran back and
Wow.
changed that wire. Now, it's a small thing. It might be explainable, but it's one that always kind of stuck in my head, back of my head a little bit. It's like, how did he
Like
figure that
how
out?
he, yeah, exactly. Well, I always thought my father was a very smart man. And I guess he was smart, but he also had apparently a gift where he could just sense or see things that were going on and then react accordingly.
Yeah, I've
But he was so quiet about it, like I always
yeah,
was. You don't tell people.
yeah,
I wonder if my father, he never admitted it to me, but maybe he too had that kind of a gift, but never told people because of what he was afraid they'd think.
probably. I'd be surprised if that weren't the case, especially during that era. I mean, we're a little more
Hmm.
open
Yeah,
about it now,
exactly.
but back then, no.
Right. But in the 20th century, things weren't that open yet.
But yeah, he was. Um, yeah, he definitely had an insight to him.
Hmm.
I guess that concludes our session then. Mom, I want to thank you very much for being on the air and
It's
sharing
my
your
pleasure.
experiences and stories.
Well, I enjoyed it too. Thank you very much for having me.
And if you ever want to come back with some new experiences, let me know.
I sure will.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tim Sedano. This is Paranormal Insight. Have a good rest of the week. Thank you for watching and listening. Please click the subscribe button and activate notifications for future episodes and other content. On Spotify, please don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook and Instagram under paranormal.insight.podcast